Hello.
Welcome back to the Bible Study Girl podcast. This is Sarita. You may know me as Bible Study Girl. And with his open arm embrace of a welcome to you guys was none other than the executive producer of this podcast, Bible Study Brother.
Hello, it is I, Bible Study Brother, also known as Icarus Gray over at Gray Area Anime. This is the most wonderful podcast of your day. My new single, Energy, is out now. Go listen to it.
Oh, throwing some extra energy our way.
Yes.
I can dig it. We are continuing down our journey of blogs that I wrote on the BibleStudyGirl.com website. Very fun recap, walk down memory lane. And it's also a chance for me to give you guys some updated perspective that I have since I wrote those blogs. Currently, we're pretty much 3 years behind. All the blogs we're talking about were written about 3 years ago. And so you guys get to see my growth as a woman, as a Christian, just as a person in general. And today's blog that we are going to be recapping is called Going and Growing. Where can you find this blog, you ask? Head over to BibleStudyGirl.com. You can touch the magnifying glass, type in Going and Growing, and it will take you directly to the blog. Otherwise, you will have to wade through over 300 blog entries. And who has time for that? Nobody. So take my advice and go ahead and type it in the search bar. It's going to be much easier for you. I think I will say that to date, of the blogs that we've talked about and recapped, this blog is the one that has caused me to have such a perspective shift and change since I wrote it. When I wrote this blog 3 years ago, had no clue or even thought of a worldwide pandemic happening. And so really in the blog, I was discussing why it's important to go to church and how going to church can grow you, the different great qualities you get from attending church in person, pardon me. And also how is it important for us as Christians to always not just go to church, but to constantly be in the process of growing in our Christian faith and our knowledge of Christ and our relationship with him. And so definitely have had a big shift in my thinking since I wrote the blog. I will, Bible Study Brother here. What are your thoughts about virtual church and its role in the church? What are the pros and the cons you can think of?
Pros are for those people that are not physically able to get to church. You can give them a viewpoint to get to church. Obviously, you can give them something that still connects them, and it extends your reach. And I think that was all it was invented to do prior to pandemic stuff happening. We were talking earlier about how when I first started preaching versus my last licensing sermon, or where I got the licensing sermon, that immediately following, we were all in virtual church.
We were all in virtual church. You preached your licensing sermon, and then that next Sunday, the entire world either did not have church service or they were in virtual church. The shift happened that quickly.
Yeah. So it was a lot of stuff. I don't think you get the same impact on virtual, especially after these last 2 years. With us moving and searching for a church, it wasn't until we got to be in the actual church that I was like, oh, this music ain't that bad. It just sounds bad over the internet because you can't feel the drums, or you can't like feel the music coming loudly as it should, or you can't hear all the vocal tones of the person that's singing, because maybe the feed that they're getting ran through is just like, it only has one thing or something on it. I don't know.
Right. That's a different aspect of virtual church that people don't really think about. Some churches have big budgets for the latest microphones, the best quality camera, and other churches don't. And I know people like to, get super spiritualized and say it doesn't make a difference, but it does. Those things make a difference in how much attention somebody is going to pay. Of course, my thing is always it's about spiritual, you know, are you preaching a word? Are you teaching a word? When you talked about reach earlier and we think about reach and we feel like virtual church is a way to expand the mission field, typically, especially in these days and age, people want to be engaged and you're not reaching for the super saved person. You reaching for the lost. Now I know the Lord can do miraculous things and it doesn't take a great sound production, because these mics we have are not the tippy top of the line. We record over Zoom. So it's not like, so the Lord can do a work in any situation, but you're reaching out to a fallen world. You don't have to become like the world, but you do want to put your best foot forward. So I think a lot of times people can judge your church based on your video quality.
Yeah. And the bigger thing is a lot of churches aren't prepared quite yet for doing it. Outside
Right.
of
Nobody was prepared. I think about even my church. It's like you are being, like you said, we did your licensing sermon one Sunday, and literally the next Sunday it's like, okay, we've been doing church in person, that's done. So come up with a plan.
Yeah, people had to like grab webcams and stuff. And I think about, even Michael Todd, his whole thing is examples. And he does his examples in great ways, bad ways. We're not going to go over that again. But, like, but it's for, to me, not only the people sitting, but the people sitting in the pulpit, or not the pulpit, but in the congregation, but the people at home as well. And I think that it's still growing the interactive aspects of that. Because a lot of the time, like they'll mention stuff, like you'll see the graphics of, hey, do offering here, send in your money and all of these other things. But people are not saying, hey, I need to either incentivize you, not incentivize, inspire you is a better term. Because if I say incentivize, that sounds like I'm whatever. Anyway, but to come to church, to that you are welcome. And we have such archaic thoughts on a lot of this stuff that's like last year was every old churches in the world opportunity to kind of upgrade a little bit.
Yeah.
And try and figure things out, to try and make things more streamlined, because so many churches that were fussing about wireless mics, like that used to be a thing that old churches was, yes, like it, because it costs so much on certain levels, and then the rest of the people was like, coming from churches that don't have no mics, where you just had to yell and or project your voice.
You project your voice.
So technology has always been something that's a catch-22, because we get it and we use it somewhat for the old things that we were doing before, instead of advancing things to the natural place that they should be, which is to continue building the inspiration to congregate, be together, to go out and testify.
Right. And to spread the gospel message to the entire world. I will say, I believe that there was a value in us getting together every Sunday as a church family when I wrote the blog. But now I know for sure there is value. There's a difference in being in a building with believers and then connecting with believers online. And I know that for sure now, because that's been my my connection point. Yes, meeting with believers over Zoom is better than nothing, but I believe there's a certain energy, you know what I'm saying, that you get when you are all in a room together. 2021 was a very challenging year for me. And I'm gonna tell you how crazy it is. I don't even think I'm sure I didn't, I don't know if I told you this example, but just even going over my taxes, she was like, did such and such happen in 2021? And I was like, no. I feel like I would know that if that happened. And she was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh yeah, it happened. And I'm like, okay, when? She was like, March. And I'm like, you know what? I wasn't even in my right mind in March. So it very well could have happened. What she said happened actually happened.
Uh-huh.
Literally had no memory. Do you hear me? So that's just an example of how trash my 2021 was. Like my mind was not in the right place. But I think so I had all my trauma going on and I was really disconnected from a church family.
Yeah.
Like we would meet together on Zoom. I want to say I didn't even really attend meetings in 2021. I was
Oh
just
no, you did not.
disconnected. Like my Christian connection was my immediate family, Chantel, and the former church members. They reached out to me throughout 2021, just
Yeah,
checking on you. You okay? You know, I love you. I'm here for you. But I was still in a very
because you hardly opened your Bible for a
hardly,
while.
hardly.
Like I know that I after definitely after February, uh I completely and utterly stopped because I was working through the Bible in a year.
Oh, I was too
I didn't
with my
open that app.
cousin.
Yeah. I didn't open that app. I didn't look at it because it was a thing for me to like get up in the morning, ride to work, listen to, 2 or 3 days worth cuz I'm not I the 365 was like too slow for me. I just want to
I'm trying to
like
get it done.
not even that. It's just like we can do that. I can get more. Like I don't like cliffhangers. That's not something that I was raised to like. I ain't cliffhangers just make me mad. So um oh, man, the disconnect that was so readily there and coming as you are, you know, spent so much time in the bed, like, I'm here. And you know.
Now I will say 2020, I attended virtual church regularly.
Hmm.
Um, I was teaching Sunday school at virtual church. It was a different level of responsibility for me. Previously, I was teaching Sunday school physically at the church. My Sunday school class was not very large. Tamika would faithfully be there on time every Sunday. So typically it would be me and her, you know, just starting off, and everybody else would trickle in. But switching to virtual church where Sunday school was on virtual church and everybody is going to be logging in at the same time. For some reason, folks came on time. Virtual Sunday school, which is a blessing, but it added a layer of responsibility to me. Not to say that I wasn't prepared for in-person church, but I felt like I really needed to be prepared for virtual church because the Sunday school class is open to the whole world at this point. You know, anybody can hop on. And the likelihood of anybody hopping on is much greater than me physically being in the church building because it's convenient. And so that was a different challenge and a different slant to church experiences for me. But then when we switched over, like once I left virtual Sunday school and I went to regular church service, it was the time for me to be much more relaxed. I could be on my phone. Service is going on. I'm singing along to the songs, you know what I'm saying? But it's different than if I was in person, because in person I would be more engaged. Not saying that I never looked at my phone while I was actually in church, because I would, but not to the degree that I was in
No.
virtual
Well,
church.
I mean, we did it at breaking points or at like dead points in, sermons, or if somebody came up and, we trying to let them use you, and it's a prayer time, and your prayer just, you start having a full blown soliloquy conversation with the Lord, and you ain't really praying for nobody, and we all kind of uncomfortable, but we can't say we uncomfortable because it's your turn at the mic. Um, those were the moments to get on your phone, or whatever the case may
Right.
be. Versus, like, if I'm just home, you can't look at me. It was almost like um God wasn't looking at you no more. You know what I'm saying? Like, and because of that, uh you ain't checking, like,
Right. And I think so. Okay, so 2020 happened. I'm regularly attending church. I'm doing virtually. I'm regularly attending Sunday school, teaching Sunday school virtually. All these things are going on. 2021 happens, the beginning of the year. We experienced all these losses back to back. I will say, after Tamika passed away, I think I did not teach for 2 Sundays because the first Sunday I was out of town for our uncle's funeral after Tamika passed. And then the next Sunday was Tamika's funeral. So I didn't teach on those 2 Sundays. Then the next Sunday, the third Sunday back, um, I went ahead and taught. So I only missed 2 Sundays. Well, then, a couple weeks later, Aunt Linda dies. And then the next week, Uncle Chauncey dies. And it was like, you know what? I need a break. And so I stopped teaching virtual Sunday school and I stopped going to virtual church. Like, how easy would it be for me to click it on and to attend virtual church? But it was a block for me, not because I didn't love the Lord, but because every time I looked up at that screen, I just saw my cousin laying up on the altar, gone. And while I rejoice that she is with the Lord, that is a painful experience. That is a traumatic experience. And literally, my body, I can't control, you know, the way my body would physically react. I couldn't do it. And so I went many, many months in 2021 with no consistent church life input.
And I had to. I had to have connection. Um, because, I mean, again, being an associate pastor at that point, um, there was no choice, but to, like, at least be involved. Another thing that I hadn't even realized until you just said that, like, it would be hard for me to go back to your church currently, just me, because the
Correct.
only 2 times that I've gone were all cousin related. The
Right.
first time that I had, like, fully been in your church, I think we just, like, we were checking churches out or whatever.
Right.
But the second time it's Cuzzo Day. Like, we had
Right.
cousin shirts and all this other stuff. And then I did not come back
Until her wake.
until the wake. And, like, man, it's so strange to have those kind of memories in places.
Right.
And an excellent sermon that got preached this Sunday, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or last Sunday. Whenever y'all get this, it's been some Sundays, so you'll have
It's
to
been
actually
some
it's been some
Sundays by the
Sundays.
time this drop.
You'll have to look for this on Church of All Nations Tacoma. I can't think of the date. It doesn't matter. From what I'm saying, you'll figure it out. So what the sermon was about was the cross. And I've never thought about the cross in this light, right?
Mm-hmm.
The cross prior to Jesus was used just in terms of crucifixions. Like, there was no, spiritual biblical purpose in a cross.
Right. It's just what they use.
the fact, and this is like how redeeming God is in terms of the symbols of things or whatever, and why things are like, what they are. I never think about that. I
Right.
only think about Jesus if I see a cross.
I know that's right. Look at that.
Like, I
Look at
don't
that.
think about all of the ramifications of that stuff. So when you think about the church house in terms of the connection, I never made the connection point of, people as much as I did in these past 2 years and being in a church place and kind of seeing how people interact. Do new people show up to your church and you just kind of not say something? That's a whole new
Right.
thing for now. Even in our new church, there's been like greeters that kind of speak to us or whatever that have spoken to us, but like I filled out a guest thing and we still ain't got contacted.
Hmm.
But I'm like, well, is that being in front of people, staying to the end of service, talking to people after service thing? Is it you kind of have to know what you're spiritually looking for and asking for in terms of your prayer? Is it something we've learned and gained in this virtual church era of not really being able to connect with people, which I thought would make you more connected because it's easier for
Maybe
you to get
not
information?
though. We've been so out of practice with being connected to people in general.
Hmm.
I even think about in my line of work as a speech language pathologist, you know how many babies have been born and don't really have interaction with people. And so then when they do have interaction with people, people have masks on their faces and that's normal for them. But people don't even realize this. Babies are getting robbed of being able to read facial expressions because they're not able to. Any new people they meet have a mask on their face. And yes, they can interact with their mom and their dad, and that's
But
great
it
and that's
throws them
good.
off. There's a
It
level of
does.
distrust that they have because they look and they're like, they immediately know it's not normal. Like, I've never, like, my mom, the persons I'm protected by don't do that.
Yeah, they don't
So
have that.
I should, I think I distrust you. Like, I've seen a lot more babies like kind of reach up and grab it, the mask and stuff, and like pull mask down and everything else. Then the connecting points of what you need in reality, the
Right.
reality of the spiritual connections and the presence and energy of God just is different. That
It's different. It's different. And I was saying the point about me not really being at church is because I physically went to church last Sunday. We were supposed to record this episode last week,
Mhm.
and I kept getting confirmation after confirmation that I needed to take my physical body to church, which I have physically been in the church maybe 2 times since Tamika passed. And I it took me a while to get over it. If I don't know how to I don't know a different way to word it, but like it's very draining on me. Like I can't even hear what y'all saying right now. Really.
Yeah,
Like
what a release
I
trauma.
right. Like I'm here, but I'm not here.
Right.
And so but this past Sunday I was able to be there physically and be there mentally at the same time, which is a big deal. I didn't tear them folks church up, which I thought I could. Like I could tear this church up. I could flip all these pews.
Girl.
But church was really what I needed. I needed that energy. I needed to feel connected to my family because that is my church family. I needed to feel connected to my family again. And I needed the sermon. Like the sermon was right on time. It was a right now word for me. I just have to push past all my feelings of uncomfortableness and
Mm-hmm.
my sadness and really get connected again. When I wrote the blog 3 years ago, I did not ever think that there would be a point in my life where I needed connection to God and I chose not to get it.
Yeah.
Like, and I just stepped away from it. And I feel like a lot of people will be like, well, you don't go to church because of, your cousins are not your cousin. And that wasn't the point. Tamika loved the Lord. I love the Lord. We love the Lord together and separately. But our connection was so strong and her presence was so strong in my life that I don't go places I used to go without her. Not really.
Oh,
I just
bro,
can't handle it.
we've talked about
And
that. Like my
right.
my driving home was hard because I would not only go by, um, like technically her old home, your new home in terms of going
Oh,
straight
I have to
anywhere,
drive by her old house
and then
anytime I leave.
you do, and then I had to drive by Euler, and Euler is synonymous not with what it is for me; it's synonymous with her.
Right.
Like and so and then like on one strip, and
It's
that's
a
like
lot.
every day, and let alone any razorback anything. I don't like it. It may have been separate when she was here,
But
but
now it's all
it ain't. It's
together.
all together, man. Like especially Woo Pig Sue in and of itself. I just hear her being, but we don't think about the connections, and I think the mental connections between people, whether it's family members, because so many of my Mount Pleasant church members passed while we were in virtual service.
Correct. So much life changed. And I think
I couldn't even go to
grief is
funerals.
different. Grief is different for everybody.
Yeah.
I think it might have been easier for me to go back to church in a more immediate fashion if we were all in person all the time.
Yeah. We had the
But I
perfect
had,
excuse.
right, but I had so long to just be in myself and do my own thing that the
Mm-hmm.
transition back to regular church is difficult. I think it extended that period, that the grief for me. It's different for everybody. Some people can walk into church the next day after a funeral and it's fine. And that's fine for you, but that ain't who I am. I
No.
didn't think I was going to be this person. And yes, I have loved and lost in life before. I think maybe losing so many people back to back like ramped everything up to
Yeah.
like a breaking point level. I think that has a lot to do with it as well. And I think too, because my family loves the Lord so much, everybody that I lost was a member of my Sunday school class.
Mm-hmm.
We met together every Sunday morning. So I can't think about Jesus without thinking about my family.
No, but it's also important in our family, and maybe for a lot of people, places hold power.
They
Um,
do.
and it's not just place; it's the memory of said places on top of a million other things. We've talked about our family trips to Panama City and how that place is changed now,
Right.
for a lot of different reasons. That place went through a whole hurricane,
Sure
uh
did.
like after we had gone one year
On our
and
last
on
big
our
family,
on our
on our
last
last big family vacation, and went through a hurricane. Sure
um
did.
and you don't think about the significance of this, because so many times people just like, especially like when you're younger, they're like, you just need to get to a church house. um but there's so much impactful connections and everything else, memories, how you associate God to other things are based in your church or the places you go with God. And so when you're going there with
Right.
God, your grief is normally separated. So even if you're going to somebody's funeral and your church is hosting it, you're able to separate the things
Right.
because of whatever. But with this, when all of the worlds collide, your spirituality, your family life, your family memories, the fact that you were rejuvenated in God by going to this church because of how church burnt out you were, Everything met at a crossroads. We forgot the directions to these crossroads when everything was virtual.
Right.
Um, because you don't realize like a hug from Sister Johnson or whoever started your week off because she gave you a little bit of happy spiritual energy. She prayed on you. She was happy to see you. Somebody saw you, didn't have to call you because they terrible on the phone. It's a lot of folks that don't know how to call nobody and don't want to call nobody. They will see you on Sunday and be like, man, it is a blessing to see your face because your smile is infectious or whatever the case may be. And it's all about connecting with people anyway. You know, these are tools or are but tools to try and enhance, not supplement or replace. And that's, you know, like where we were. We were in a place of replacement.
God has been gracious to me. I'm thankful that even though I guess I put myself in timeout and like in a season of just like leave me alone. He still has been gracious to me, and I'm grateful for that. Like being in service Sunday made me realize how much I need it, how much I missed it, and how important it is. Yes, you can have connection with your church family virtually. And I certainly did, you know, at the beginning of the pandemic, I definitely had great connection for with my church family. But I think me being out of the practice of attending church, my local, you know, my church home regularly, physically in person, um, was a disservice to me. Other people may have a different experience, but I think um and other people may be more committed and able to attend to church while they're in their homes, but it was a richer experience for me in person.
Yeah.
I mean, people have different experiences. The great thing is this is just my walk with Christ. This is just my experience with Christ. It's not yours, and it doesn't have to be yours. You can make better choices, you know, or you can have a completely different opinion about it. Um, but I'm telling you what's been beneficial for me. I don't ever want to get that twisted. You know, I am passionate about other people sharing their stories and their experiences and their walks with Christ because I think I learn a lot from it and I grow a lot from it. But I also at the same time realize that part of my responsibility and what God has called me to do is to share my story and my walk because that's all I got. I don't have yours. Um, and so I can just tell you what my experience with Christ has been. He has been gracious to me. He has been kind to me. He has been loving to me. But I've definitely struggled with my, I guess, accountability and really showing up so I can get what I need to
Right.
keep moving.
And I think that's what it was. If you think about it from our perspective of growing up in an era in a black household where the culture is you go to church. Not only do you go to church, especially with our mom, you go to so many different things. And so, but that's been our life. And so when you made the choice to find your church, you know, to find your what you needed spiritually,
Right.
there were so many things that are attached to that. And the thing God gave us over the past 2 years of, if nothing else, between 2020 and 2021 is perspective. Like
Correct.
perspective that you haven't had to have as a Christian in years. You haven't had to see what it's like to kind of figure out how to start from square one in terms of
Yeah.
figuring out how to reach people and talk to people. You had to change the way you spoke to people. You had to think about different walks. It's what has enhanced our podcast. We speak from the perspective of our walks as our lives, you know, not their facts to us because it's a fact that I lived and experienced it this way.
Right.
But what we do it for is to share the fact that testimonies hold power, and you just got to keep talking about these things because there is somebody else out there that walked and felt like you. that needs to know, okay, it's okay that I needed a minute. I don't need to be chastised by someone who cannot understand that.
Can I tell you
Yeah.
who chastised me?
Oh,
Your mama.
oh, of course.
And then I sent you that thing on Instagram where the girl was on the phone with her mama. And it's like a Ring doorbell camera, and she's arguing with her mama about going to church and like, you can't tell me, I ain't saved or whatever because I
Like,
don't go
or
to
she
church.
said, "Who are
And then,
you to tell me?"
yeah, who are you to
And
tell
before
me?
she finished the statement,
And then before she can finish it, like she trying to walk down the steps. I guess it's ice on the steps.
yeah.
Anyway, she ends up boom, boom, boom. It's hilarious.
And
And I
she
had
put
to,
it up, which is the funniest thing.
but I had to show it to mama because she like, girl, you need to go to church. And, I've had pushes from my friends and other people like, are you going to go to church? Like, yes. And even, the push wasn't necessarily go to your church, but if my therapist was like, if you physically can't handle going to your church, just listen to it online. You don't have to. I was like, well, I can't watch the video. I can hear it in the background, but I can't watch the video because I'm gonna flip out.
Yeah.
It was a stages thing, like what I could tolerate.
Yeah.
And part of me is like, should you share that with people? Because I feel like people are gonna be like, she's so weak. You know what I'm saying? Like,
No, but
that she couldn't. And you could have blocked. Jesus died on the cross. Didn't he die?
yeah, but that's
Um,
the thing we don't do here is the fact that what somebody thinks in terms of that is like what we're trying to dispel. The fact that every walk is different. Now, that don't mean we not using discernment and cosigning like blatant hypocrisy, but in acknowledging on the front end, and it's something we do every time we do this podcast, this might not be spiritually right, but I am placing it to the feet of God. I'm placing
Boy,
it.
you just preached a word. I'm not perfect. That is my
And I'm
thing. I
not.
am not perfect.
But that's what I have to do. I have to show the fact that it is a continual daily thing that I don't get right, because you will never box me somewhere or put me in a box to where my mistake somewhere is the only thing you think you can think of me.
Right.
Because we do that so often. We're gonna do an episode at some point at all of these exposés on certain places. I'm not gonna say the name because I'm just wait till we get there. But the thing is, so often Christians are not taking back the power of the fact that I make mistakes. I'm not showing myself to be faultless. That cross that represents all of these things shows who was faultless. It ain't me.
Mm.
I'm
You preaching today.
I'm trying to get there. I'm trying to, do that every day. And that's something else that being separate from the church house was also trying to expose you. Like, this is you. Like, this you. Like, without anybody around, like, are you satisfied with you?
Right.
Are you okay with this? Like, are you okay with being this disconnected from people? And you can tell by the way everybody's acting. The entire world was like, I'm sick of this. I'm tired of it. I'm done.
One of my church mottos is we can't do life alone. And that's something Tamika um fought. I'm gonna say she fought it valiantly, baby. She'd be like, pastor say you can't do life alone. I sure be wanting to. But really, at the end of her life, she was a big advocate for y'all. We can't do life alone. And I know for sure my separation from my church family and really my family has shown me that I really can't do life alone. I don't function well alone. Nobody does. Even if I'm very introverted. I like be by myself. I like be
I
at
like
home.
being by myself.
I like be by myself. I like be at home at this computer. But even in my new job, they won't let me do life alone. Quit chatting me and messaging me. I just won't be quiet, girl. But we don't have that choice. We don't have that option. We can't do life alone. And I think the separation from my church family and just from family in general has shown me just the importance of being connected, and it's not important to just go to church or to watch church virtually, but we need to be growing.
Mm-hmm.
If we're not growing, we're doing it wrong. We're not, it's not working. So I will say, even in my absence, I've learned a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I learned how far back I am.
Oh man,
And
like
this ain't right.
if
Sis is me.
bro,
And
if
so
January didn't
I
say we needed people, I don't like that was the whole shock of life was we was all tired of not being around each other by January. Like even though we was still kind of getting together when we could and being as safe
don't
as
know.
possible.
Let's be honest. We got together frequently during the pandemic.
No, yeah, but like it was still. I feel like we still got together in
It
what would
was
be
way scaled down.
that's what I'm
We
saying. Like by
Yeah.
January though, when the grief started coming, we was just like,
Let's get
mm-mm,
together.
nah, fam. Like I can't because like virtual church in and of itself, what kind of traumas these last 2 years have created for people. Like time moves fast.
It does. It does not seem like it's been 2 years since the world changed.
Since the world changed. And not only is it that, there's so much unexpected things going on. What's going on with me. So like you'll be it gets hard to be in the moment. It gets hard to be in the presence because you got to get in the presence. You got to enjoy. You have to be in the moment because that moment is only there right now. At the time you listen to this podcast, whatever it does for you is there in this moment. It might carry to something else you do. Like we might say something that, hopefully, prayerfully helps you. But once that moment is passed, like
It's gone.
it's gone. And, that's something that I think that not America, the world has been holding on to after this pandemic stuff. Is like, bruh, there were so many people who, when you went into your quarantine, you came out, your neighborhoods changed. There were people that weren't there anymore. There were jobs that were no longer there. There were places
Right.
like the world changed. And you've had moments where, it's been 10 years and everything stayed the same. Like, this restaurant you knew was gonna be open around the clock. Browns, we had a whole buffet place that we like going to. That buffets changed, in that regard of what people do with those. Like human connection as a whole shifted. So, whew, Lord, man,
Going and growing.
Going and growing.
We've been through a lot. And I am grateful that we get the opportunity to go back and look at these blogs and really 3 years is a long time. I think that's one thing that's great and is interesting about these recaps is because your whole everything can be flipped upside down. I think about the girl or the woman that I was when I wrote the blog, and she ain't here no more.
She not. I don't think you could have told that woman
a complete
what was coming for you. Like if you would have told that, if you would have told that woman wouldn't have left. That woman would have isolated before isolation.
Correct. She would have.
Like, well, maybe not, because maybe the only other thing
for
that
me to
woman
walk.
would have did was be with people. But go ahead, my bad. I wasn't trying to cut you off. I'm sorry.
It's always interesting. It really has been interesting for me to look back and be like, oh girl, that's what you thought then.
Oh, don't do this at the end of the podcast, you stupid internet. Stupid internet.
I think everybody should keep a journal. Y'all don't have to blog and make it. Yeah, bro.
Stupid internet.
Okay. Can you see me? Can you
I
hear me now?
you froze, but the internet is being dumb, and I apologize. It made it through majority of the episode though, so and I'll at least give it credit for that. You're still froze. I
Okay.
don't think
That's good.
it's my internet though. I think it's probably me.
Maybe. No, I was moving. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I think you are unfroze. You're are you just sitting there still now? Um, but anyway, we appreciate you guys for listening to this episode. Please go to BibleStudyGirl.com where there are where there are blog posts every day to inspire you. By the time you get done doing this rewatch, I mean, we'll probably be like 5, 6, 7 years behind because, we're just going through these as the blog posts come up. And we're going through the whole thing because there's so much value in not only seeing your testimony but seeing the things around him and remembering that it's not the church that preaches, it's not Zoom that preaches, it's not the Apple computer that I'm sitting at that preaches, but we preach.
And until we meet again, guys, keep preaching. Thanks for your patience and our technical glitches.